Alright, it is time for the Ice Cave. A lot of people would dread going into this dungeon, and I certainly agree with them. There's a lot of really nasty things in this dungeon. There's a lot of really threatening encounters. The boss is not too hard for this party, but it's really the random encounters that are going to be the worst. Now, this party has some things going for it that will help it out in this dungeon, particularly access to the life spell. In this game, in these older versions anyway, the only way to revive a dead character outside of a town, going to the clinic in the town, is with this life spell cast out of battle. You cannot revive any character in a battle at all. So the life spell or the life 2 spell from later on. Now, these characters are not over-leveled, I wouldn't say, but they do have a couple charges of life each. Now, there are several enemies in this dungeon that do have instant killing kind of abilities that we could run into, but thankfully, because of those life spells, we can bring each other back to life, and with a full stock of heal potions, and as you can see there, the heal staff from the Castle of Ordeals, also the Zeus Gauntlet, or just the gauntlets from that same Castle of Ordeals, are going to help us a lot in this dungeon. Now, we're fighting this battle with the wizards, or the Pisco demons, because this battle is flagged as unrunnable. We haven't talked too much about unrunnable battles, but this game has some frustratingly unrunnable battles that you would not think normally would be. Now, the wizards are coded as unrunnable. Any encounter with those wizards is coded as unrunnable simply because they appear as a kind of boss in the Marsh Cave. And the way the game is coded is that battle has a flag, that battle type, of either 2 to 4 wizards, or I think it's 3 to 7 wizards is the other set. Is flagged as unrunnable. Now, this kind of battle I can run from, the cockatrice/mummy fight. The cockatrices have a status attack attached with them that we want to avoid. They can they can turn you into stone without casting an ability. And you can see they did apply stone status there. They have a status attack petrify. Now, the way that works, status attack in this game, if an enemy has a status attack, when it makes that attack, it rolls a random number between 0, 0, and 200, just like a lot of other ones. There, we got away from that battle. Just like other 2-hit rolls. And then the number to resist that is 100 minus your magic defense. Now, that's a hidden number in the NES version of this game, but we can actually see it here in this one. So the higher magic defense you have, the better chance you have of avoiding the status attack, whether it's sleep from the mummies or petrify, indeed, from the cockatrices. Now, that battle can be fought grinded a little bit because cockatrices only have 50 hit points. They don't do a lot of damage. They have that status attack. But with only the 50 hit points, if you have more than one offensive item with this party, now I only have at this point just the gauntlets to cast Bolt 2. So you noticed that when we did that battle, I had the top 2 characters run. The third character used the gauntlet because it was a little bit better bet to try to kill some of those cockatrices with that gauntlet item, because 2 castings of the gauntlet item would certainly kill all of them, but 1 casting could kill a few of them and at least reduce the chances to hit. Now, I was happy to safely get away from that, use the soft potion, and continue on. This battle here with the Ice Gigas and the Winter Wolf, that's the Frost Wolf and Frost Giant battle, this is another one that's oddly coded as unrunnable in the game. So we do have to fight this one straight up. We have no choice but to take these guys on. So I am using the Blink ability to reduce the damage taken from the Ice Gigas, and when the Frost Wolves do their physical attack, and Bar Ice will defend me from the all-targeting ice spell that the Frost Wolves will cast. There it is. It's called Ice Storm. I believe it might just be called Blizzard in the NES translation. So certainly we're off to a good start. Now, this is not my first attempt at this dungeon. This was, I believe, my 4th attempt at this particular dungeon. This will be a successful attempt, so if you do want to see a game over, you won't see that here in this video. This is a successful ice cave crawl. I did skip some treasures in this because it's simply, for this party, simply not worth it to go out of the way for treasures that are going to be mostly useless to me. There are some nice swords, shields, armors in here for some of the more heavily armored characters of this game, but the white mages wouldn't be able to make use of much of it, so I skipped it in favor of safety. But you can see the Zeus gauntlets is what's allowing me to make it through this at all. Without that item, the mages would not really have a chance at these frost giant battles, or indeed the wizard battles could also be extremely threatening. They would be a lot like the wizard battle back in the marsh cave, where I'm plunking away for just a few damage each time. So the reason to go into the ice cave here is to pick up the item that's going to let us get the airship. And once we do get that item, we can pick up that airship, and then suddenly lots of things open up for us, and technically that's when we are, according to the plot, supposed to visit the Castle of Ordeals to pick up the Zeus gauntlet here. But you can sneak down to the Castle of Ordeals. That's actually, you go down to get to the northern continent where the Castle of Ordeals is, and you can get off the ship at the river that connects to that continent. There isn't actually a dock up there in the northern continent, so you have to get off the ship at a river. And I'm not sure, it's unknown, at least to me, if the designers intentionally built that in, or if that was just an oversight on the designer's part to allow a ship to dock at that river, but it really makes a big difference here. And you can see I'm shuffling equipment around. I got a little bit confused in my equipment distribution in this dungeon crawl, unfortunately, because of getting the character put to stoned. And then once they were resorted, I lost track of who had what. So I had to do some shuffling a little bit. The reason my characters are out of the naming order is because I was getting experience redistributed, because before getting access to the heal staff and a few other of those big offensive items, the characters in the top two rows were getting killed a lot more often, and thus the characters in the bottom rows were getting way ahead in experience. So I did have to shuffle them around a little bit to even out my experience in the earlier part of the game. Once we had access to the life spell, I was able to even up experience again pretty quickly. And then I could finally put them back in their naming order so it would be easy after a death or a stoning event to get them back to where I needed them. Now, thankfully, in this restored version, it only sorts after a death or a stoning attack. In the original NES version, any character who was poisoned was sorted to the back of the party, which was very, very irritating. It made poison even more annoying. It drains your resources, because poison is an expensive ailment to cure, because you have to use a 75 gold pure potion, or an antidote in this translation. Inns do not heal statuses like stone, death, poison. Inns do not heal those. Now in this room, we have all these holes and we have 3 chests. That middle chest is the key item that I need. The upper right chest is a troll chest. It's a cloth, I think it's a cloth armor, but it's guarded by a nasty enemy. Now this one I was really going to run, but I did decide to fight it, because I do have some all-damaging things with my bottom couple of characters, so I can take these guys out without too much trouble, because I had the strike first. I wanted to see how a casting of the Zeus Gauntlet went. Now, I overstepped that other chest because I incorrectly remembered that the chest up here to the left is also spiked. It is not spiked, but I kind of sprinted past it because I was expecting a trapped square in front of that chest. So there is a nice item in the upper left chest and a troll item in the upper right chest. So we need to, after this battle, we need to fall down any one of those holes. All of those holes lead to the same place. They bring us down to the next floor, and actually a trapped battle with undead, which again the white mages are well equipped to handle because they have access to the Harm 2 spell, the Diara spell. And some parties that have a white mage in the party will use the spiked square that we're about to see as a spot to grind a little bit. So there's the flame sword. So any of those holes will bring you to this spot, and that square is always spiked with a battle with this kind of undead mix. It's not always this identical distribution, but it's these kinds of enemies in a big number like this. But with access to all targeting spells like this, and even the gauntlets allow me to cast for free and take out several of them before they've had a chance to act. And this will pile up the experience too. Now, in one of the floors coming up, I will have a chance to run into the sorcerer or the mind flayer enemies, and their status attack, rather than stone from that of the cockatrice, their status attack is death. So if they hit you, they have a chance to just roll a lucky number and just kill you outright. They can do just 1 or 2 damage, but they can just kill you outright. So those are some damage floors right there. There is some nice treasure to the lower left corner of this room. There's a room with some treasure, but I'm not risking the extra battles to go down there to pick it up because this dungeon crawl is going quite well after I did have a few party wipes. So there's a room with some treasure in it, but I need to go back upstairs to the next floor. There are a few money treasures that I'll be picking up here in the next room that are not protected and are not very far out of my way. And I'm just checking to make sure my characters are healed up after going through that floor. That was actually a really nice lower floor. I got very good luck with some strike firsts and without some nasty battles. I'm using my dash carefully to make sure I don't take any extra steps, because any step can be your last in this ice cave. So here again, I'm deciding to get a little bit bold. Now the Dia spell will only damage the mummies. It will not damage the cockatrices, but I'm deciding to fight this one because the distribution of cockatrices is pretty low, and the gauntlets can take out one or both of the cockatrices in that first action. But I can deal with one cockatrice. It's when you run into, say, 6 cockatrices and 3 mummies that you are in trouble. But if you do have access to more of the all-damaging spells, again, as I said before, you can take them out pretty quickly with relatively low risk. And stone is easier to cure than death, although soft potions or gold needles in this one are very expensive. I believe they're 800 gold. So I'm healing up after that, just because the mummies did a little bit of extra damage to us, but the cockatrices were not much of a threat. 10,000 gold, that's a big one. So in this room, there's some more treasures. And a hole up there, as you can see. Now that hole will take me back to the inner part of the 3 treasure chests we saw before. So that hole is where you need to go. Now there's stairs on this floor in the upper right corner of this floor. I'm going to fight this battle with the specters because I'm nearing the end of the dungeon with enough spell charges on those harm 2 spells that I can risk using them just a little bit. Now, this isn't a perfect run of the dungeon, and the battle coming up is not perfect, as we'll see. I was saving my harm charges just a little bit, but I was actually saving them in vain, sadly, because the upcoming boss, on this particular crawl, I did not check beforehand, but I had misremembered that this boss was undead. I found out the hard way after the first round of casting my spells that it is not undead. It has a relative later on in the game that is undead, I noticed after checking. We'll talk about it when we get up there. But just more nice treasure. This will allow me to actually buy a lot of spells, because I'm still saving money for spells which are quite expensive. Alright, here we go. We're coming up to what was originally called the Eye in the Final Fantasy I English version. It's called the Beholder in this version, and the sprite has been changed in the restored version to match the original Japanese sprite, which looked a lot more like the copyrighted property of Beholders from the Gary Gygax Dungeons & Dragons series. That it's projected that they changed the eye graphic and the name because they did not want to deal with any trouble from TSR, the publishers of Dungeons & Dragons at the time. So you can see that my harm 2s and harm 3s are doing nothing against this enemy. This eye is actually a mage type, so the rune sword would do extra damage against it, and in this version it actually would. In the original version, the weapon types did not work. Now, it has a 2/3 chance of using magic, and its magic sequence is nasty. It's XXXX, it's break, it's death, it's lightning 2, it's hold. It's got instant death stuff. If it doesn't use magic, it has a 2/3 chance to use a skill, and its skills are glance, squint, gaze, stare. Those are all nasty stone and death inducing skills. So Beholder will almost always get you with one of those on its first action. It'll almost always get a character with one of those. Thankfully, it only has 162 hit points. It doesn't do a lot of damage if it does attack physically. So if you get very lucky, you can have it attack you physically, and it does next to nothing. Its attack is only 30, which we're starting to finally get enough armor to overcome that kind of attack. And some parties will use this battle to grind a little bit because it is worth a great deal of experience. And if you can resist the death attacks, or if you just get lucky, you can really pile up the golden experience, but it is a rather risky battle to grind on. And I wouldn't want to be messing around too much with the getting into another battle there. And here I'm reordering, and I'm again a little bit muddled on my equipment layout. I want to make sure that I have the gauntlet on the 3rd position character and the heal staff on the 4th position character, so I'm doing some adjusting here. Again, later on in the game, once I have my characters back in the correct order, I could just leave equipment on them and order them back into the naming order of 4 white mages WTF. Now you do, after fighting the eye, you are forced to go back down that same hole, go back to the same place with the trapped square. And here you get ambushed. Now, if you get ambushed or a back attack, that means that this battle is runnable. Unrunnable battles will never result in a first strike, and they will never result in a back attack. Though that random check will only happen on battles that can be run from. So this battle can be run from, and most parties would be well advised probably to attempt to run away from this battle. Now, because I'm past the eye, and I just need to walk to the stairs on that floor before going back up to this floor, I'm nearing the end of the dungeon, and I am feeling confident enough to start using my spell charges to get rid of these guys, because I want to rake in the cash and the experience. And depending on how many and what type of undead you get in that battle, you can get a little bit of a range of golden experience. The eye is a really efficient way to get a lot very quickly. Here's more damage floors. Now the heal staff recovers most of that, so I'm not really worried about that. The Gurgu Volcano was the same. I was walking over the lava without much worry because the heal staff was recovering everything for me. This battle is the Remoras, which I believe is another Dungeons & Dragons property, although they may have taken it from an older mythology. But I believe these are in the D&D Monster Manual. So I'm not sure if this was one that they would not have done, or if this is just a creative naming choice on the part of the retranslator. I believe X_Loto is a contributor on the retranslation of this patch. I believe that that's who is in charge of the text, or a good chunk of the text. Now, I decided to fight this battle because in the moment I was not sure if this one was flagged as unrunnable, and I was just feeling confident again that this party could handle it and could do enough damage to it. I underestimated a little bit how much hit points. It has 320 hit points. It was called the Great Peed in the original translation, the Great Peed. But I was getting some low rolls from my Zeus Gauntlet, and it was really crushing me. It has a pretty high attack of 73. So remember, the way the attack rolls go, it's from a random number between your attack and attack times 2. So his attack would be a number between 73 and 146, if I did my math correctly there, minus my defense. Now, my defense is growing. It's getting better thanks to the Ruby bracelet that I picked up in the Castle of Ordeals, which I believe is a gold bracelet in the NES translation. So that character has the best defense, and remember, any direct targeting attack, that's physical attacks or just enemy single target spells, when they target your party, they have a 50% chance of hitting the top frontmost character, 25% of hitting the second position, and then 12.5% each of hitting the third and fourth position characters. So if you do have a disparity in armor, you want to give the highest absorb to that top character, if you can. I've already grabbed those chests. I've already grabbed the chest in that room, and those stairs actually lead to the same entrance that I came in. So I don't have to backtrack all the way to the beginning of the dungeon. I simply have to get to those stairs. So it's a little bit confusing, because if you are crawling this dungeon for the first time, you will have seen the chest with the floater. You'll come to this room and say, I wonder if those stairs go up to that next floor. And those stairs will warp you out to the entrance. Now, for a lot of parties, that's a good thing, because they'll want to save. If they've picked up a lot of the good treasure in the dungeon, they'll want to save their progress. Now, this battle only steps away from the stairs out. If this had been an ambush and I had gotten bad luck with the cockatrice targeting, this could have been game over, and that is how the ice cave goes. I have avoided the sorcerer battles with the one-touch kills, but a fight like this I could get into, and it could have just as easily been game over. The mummies can put you to sleep. They have a status attack of sleep. Thankfully, the gauntlets took out the cockatrices there. So in a back attack, the mummies could have put characters to sleep, and the cockatrices could have turned everyone to stone while they were sleeping. And just for safety here, you see me checking. I have my Levistone. All right, I've got it. That's the mysterious floating rock that it's called floater in the NES translation. That's what lets me get the airship up out of the deserts. So that's it for this one. We made it safely out of the ice cave somehow. Again, it wasn't the first attempt, but better luck on the enemy formations that I received, and just knowledge of knowing where to go, so I didn't have to take extra steps helped me on that one. Do follow the series, subscribe to the channel. I've got more coming from this run and more from runs coming up.